Universal City Walk at Universal Studios, where back in 1997, a very young me, along with my best friend Mike, hi Mike, stood in this exact location with a bunch of fans as we watched Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze, along with other cast and crew, make their way into the theater to celebrate what was back then the 10th anniversary re-release of Dirty Dancing. Now, I'm not exactly sure how it happened, but somebody saw Mike and I standing out here, these two practically awestruck teenagers, and handed us 2 tickets. We ended up getting to watch the movie with everyone and going to the after party. The cast and crew were so nice, especially actress Miranda Garrison, who played Vivian Pressman, one of Johnny's thirsty clients. She was also the assistant choreographer in the movie. Again, couldn't have been nicer. Keanu Reeves was there, and so was Bill Paxton, and I have to tell you this story really quickly. But Mike and I were so eager and ambitious, we would talk to anyone and everyone. We approached Bill, told him we were aspiring actors. He could not have been kinder. He actually introduced us to his date that night, a friend of his who he said was from South Africa and who was also an ambitious actress. She had actually had a couple small parts in some movies, and she basically just wanted to stand there and talk about Dirty Dancing the whole time, and we basically wanted to talk to Bill about Twister and Helen Hunt. Well, at one point, I even asked her to take a photo of Bill and I, and she obliged. And it wasn't until several years later, actually not that long ago, when I was looking through boxes of photos and found photos from this night and realized Bill Paxton's aspiring actress friend was Charlize Theron. Well, it's been over 25 years since Bill and Charlize and Mike and I stood inside talking about how fabulous Dirty Dancing is. And it's been 35 years since the film was released on August 21st, 1987, really exceeding everyone's expectations of this extremely low-budget film, which, by the way, not a single frame was shot here in Los Angeles. The entire movie was shot at 2 different locations, edited magnificently to appear as if it all takes place at one resort in the Catskills. Well, I recently visited both locations and was in complete shock to learn that neither location is anywhere near the Catskills. I love Dirty Dancing so much. I saw it when I was 10 years old, probably a little too young. No parents in the neighborhood would take us kids, except for my cool mom, who not only took us, but dropped us off and let us watch it alone. God, I miss the 80s. Love the 80s. But I have to say, I am so shocked to learn that not only was Dirty Dancing not filmed in the Catskills, but it wasn't even filmed in New York. And I didn't know that until this road trip that I'm on. I decided on a whim to look up and see what all was filmed right here in the heart of the Blue Ridge Mountains. And lo and behold, Dirty Dancing was actually filmed here in the small town of Pembroke, Virginia, where we are about to pull up to Kellerman's Lodge. Wow, all right, here we are at Kellerman's Lodge, as played by the Mountain Lake Lodge, a full-fledged resort that opened way back in 1851. And the family who bought the property in the 1930s ran it until about 1986. Since then, it's been run by their estate, and not only do they embrace fans of Dirty Dancing, they welcome it, as you can see by this sign. And in fact, they have Dirty Dancing themed weekends here 4 times a year where people dress like characters and just have a full weekend of fun and games. I mean, how could they not? This place, it looks the exact same. It really feels like you're pulling up to Kellerman's. I mean, where was Max to greet us like he did the Housemans? Max was played by Jack Weston, who was born Morris Weinstein on August 21st, 1924 in Cleveland, Ohio. He started acting at the Cleveland Playhouse by age 12 and decided to take acting seriously enough to adapt the Jack Weston stage name and eventually landed some Broadway and film roles. He was nominated for a Best Actor Tony in 1981 for Woody Allen's The Floating Light Bulb. And also that year, he starred in Alan Alda's brilliant film, The Four Seasons, opposite Carol Burnett. And also, Jack had a brother, Sam, who also took the Weston stage name and had some small parts here and there before totally changing career paths, in which he became a director of porn films. Thankfully, Jack Weston never appeared in any of his brother's films. And when the Housemans pull up, they meet Max and his employee Billy, played by an actor named Neal Jones, in his very first film role. Prior to this movie, Neal appeared in several prestigious theatrical productions in New York and was, or is, a member of the famed Actors Studio. Dirty Dancing is about a family who stays in a cabin down there, which we'll check out in a bit, while on vacation at Kellerman's. And the reason it takes place in New York's Catskills is because screenwriter Eleanor Bergstein based the script off of stories, including her own, that took place in a resort very similar to how you see this one presented in the movie. The Catskills were also nicknamed the Jewish Alps, or the Borscht Belt, because from primarily the 1920s through the 1960s, it was heavily populated by Jewish families. And in case you're wondering why, it's because most resorts in the city banned Jews from attending, so they made their own little fun out in the Catskills. And Eleanor was born in 1938's Brooklyn to a Jewish doctor and his wife. She had an older sister named Frances, and they took actual vacations to the Catskills, where Eleanor's parents would play golf while she participated in dance competitions. She eventually graduated from the University of Pennsylvania, and in 1973 wrote Advancing Paul Newman, a novel about two women and their sexual escapades during the 1960s. And Eleanor, she then tried her hand at screenwriting and got a script made in 1980 called It's My Turn, starring Jill Clayburgh and Michael Douglas. Charles Grodin, who I also love, is in it, but what wasn't in it was a sexy, sultry dance scene that was written and filmed but didn't make it into the final cut. Eleanor wasn't thrilled, but what was less thrilling was that she was also nominated for a Razzie Award for Worst Screenplay. The movie totally bombed, but turned out to be one of those everything happens for a reason situations, because she really, really liked the scene, the erotic dancing scene, so much that she decided to write a script about it, and thus, Dirty Dancing was born. We first see the lodge from this view as the Housemans are approaching the start of their vacation, and Dirty Dancing began shooting on September 5th, 1986. The shoot lasted over 40 days. Now, most of the resorts in the Catskills were dilapidated and even shut down by the 1980s, so production chose this lodge and one other site that we're going to visit after this, but again, it was all wonderfully edited to look like one location, when in reality, the two spots were almost 4 hours apart. And I looked up the editor. His name is Peter Frank, and the same year he did Dirty Dancing, he did Hello Again, which of course is the Citizen Kane of movies starring Shelley Long. I mean, the man's a genius. Anyway, here at the lodge, we also have the cabin where the Housemans stay, and it's right down that path on the right. What's so wild about this cabin is that it's where Jennifer Grey actually stayed during the making of the film. Perhaps a little method acting. I mean, she was the star of the movie, and they do refer to it as the best cabin here, so it makes total sense. It's had a few modifications since the filming. The steps have been relocated, and I would go up there, but there's actually a family staying there, so we'll just stay down here and pretend the Housemans are up there. And Dr. Houseman, of course, was played by Jerry Orbach. Jerry is his nickname off of Jerome. He's so not a Jerome. He was born on October 20th, 1935 in New York, the Bronx. I mean, talk about Broadway. Actually, so much of the cast had appeared on Broadway, so many of the dancers, but Jerry is Mr. Broadway. He began his work on stage in the 1950s, working with Lee Strasberg, and eventually starred on Broadway in the 60s and never stopped working. He won the Tony and was nominated several times. His credits, I mean, they're just too long to even mention. Let's just say that when he passed away in 2004, Broadway dimmed its lights. And after Dirty Dancing, he was the voice of Lumiere in Disney's Beauty and the Beast. And in 1990, he received his first Emmy nomination for his guest starring role on The Golden Girls. But in 1992, he joined the cast of Law & Order, where he remained for almost 12 seasons. The craziest fact, though, about this man is that after high school, he did summer stock theater just outside of Chicago, where he also took a job as the personal driver, the chauffeur, to none other than Come Up and See Me Sometime, Mae West. His wife, Marjorie Houseman, is played by Kelly Bishop, and for a second or two, another actress. See, originally an actress named Lynn Lipton was cast, and you can see her briefly when the family car first pulls into Kellerman's. Her hair is blonde, and you can totally see it from the front seat, but she got very sick during the first few days of filming, and she was recast with Kelly Bishop stepping in because Kelly was already here on set, playing another character, a smaller role, but production asked her if she wouldn't mind upgrading to the role of Baby's mom, and of course she jumped at the chance. Kelly, who I would say is actually best known for her role as Mrs. Gilmore on The Gilmore Girls, was born February 28th, 1944 in Colorado Springs. And at 18, she landed her first job dancing ballet at Radio City Music Hall, eventually landing on Broadway in 1967. But she struck gold in 1975 when she landed the role of Sheila in A Chorus Line, a role that brought her a Tony Award for Best Supporting Actress. This led to other roles on Broadway, and she also did some TV and film work, including a role as Jill Clayburgh's friend in the brilliant 1978 film An Unmarried Woman. Since Dirty Dancing, she's worked quite steadily. She was in Private Parts, Wonder Boys, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Ryan Murphy's Halston. She's really fantastic. The Houseman's oldest daughter, Lisa, was played by Jane Brucker. I don't know, I've always loved her look in this movie. She's totally got this Joan Crawford 40s Hollywood actress vibe going on. She was born on May 15th, 1958 in Falls Church, Virginia, almost 300 miles from here, and studied theater, like everyone else in the movie, at the North Carolina School of the Arts. And prior to Dirty Dancing, she had a recurring role on the soap opera One Life to Live, and even appeared in a season 3 episode of Miami Vice. But after Dirty Dancing, she played Cheryl in the film Stealing Home with Mark Harmon and Jodie Foster, and once again appeared on screen with Jennifer Grey in 1989's Bloodhounds of Broadway, alongside Madonna and Matt Dillon. And speaking of Jennifer Grey, the star of our film, she rounds out the Houseman family playing Frances, who everyone, of course, calls Baby. She's the star of this movie, and I have so much to say about her. She was born on March 26, 1960 in New York City. As she was becoming a teenager, she watched from home on television as her dad, Joel Grey, accepted the Best Supporting Actor Oscar for his role opposite Liza Minnelli in Cabaret. Show business. It was in her blood from the start, and she grew up running around Broadway as her dad was starring in productions before she was even walking. And she has memories of him starring in Cabaret on stage in 1966, for which he won the Tony as well. All sorts of fascinating, talented legends would come over to Grey's place for dinners, but the most wild connection is that one of those greats was Jerry Orbach. He socialized with Joel and met Jennifer when she was just a little girl, having no idea that he'd one day play her dad in one of Hollywood's just most iconic films. Jennifer grew up in Manhattan and studied all of the arts. She landed a small role in her first film, 1984's Reckless, starring Aidan Quinn and Daryl Hannah. That was followed the same year by Red Dawn, a pretty bad movie, starring some great actors, though, like Leah Thompson, C. Thomas Howell, and Charlie Sheen, as well as a relatively newcomer, fresh off of his role in The Outsiders, an actor named Patrick Swayze. Now, it was an ensemble movie. Patrick and Jennifer's screen time, it's pretty limited. A handful of their scenes together were ultimately cut, but it really didn't matter because the movie wasn't a hit, and Jennifer did not like working with Patrick at all. Her approach to filming was so much different than Patrick's. She liked to smoke a joint and hang in her room alone and prepare for the next day's shoot. Patrick, he liked pranks and would light firecrackers outside her door, and he would joke around and goof off on set, so needless to say, the two clashed. But also that year, Jennifer made another not-so-great movie, the highly anticipated, star-studded Francis Ford Coppola film, The Cotton Club. Now, she was actually doing someone a favor by filling in for Diane Lane at the table read. Diane was still finishing up another film, so Jennifer filled in well into production until Diane was able to join the shoot. Now, it just so happened that Jennifer Jason Leigh bailed on her role as Nick Cage's gangster mole girlfriend to make another movie. So Jennifer auditioned for and got her role. Now, a couple years after The Cotton Club, Jennifer starred in the first of her two absolutely iconic films, playing Ferris's fed-up sister Jeannie in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Now, she actually started dating Ferris himself, Matthew Broderick, during filming, but given the nature of their characters' sibling relationship, the two actors kept a very low profile. But this wasn't just a casual co-star fling. They actually became engaged. Jennifer was in a relationship with Matthew the entire time she was shooting Dirty Dancing. And after it wrapped, actually, just a couple weeks before the movie was released, Matthew was driving he and Jennifer while on vacation in Ireland when a tragic accident happened. Matthew, he crossed the divider and hit another car, resulting in the death of two people. I mean, the whole thing is really just devastating and was rightfully traumatizing for Jennifer, who was thrust into the limelight as the success of this movie was escalating. Jennifer and Matthew, they eventually broke up and went their separate ways. Jennifer, being in a relationship with Matthew during the entire production of Dirty Dancing, it just left no time to fall in love with any co-stars, especially Patrick Swayze, because, as I said, they did not get along during Red Dawn. And Jennifer was actually the first one cast in the movie, so they would screen test her with potential leading men. Actor Billy Zane from Titanic, he came very close to landing the role of Johnny Castle, but production really wanted to check out this guy, Patrick Swayze. But Jennifer said, no, please, anyone but him, no. But everyone insisted on testing them together, and right before their test, Patrick, he approached Jennifer in the hallway. He congratulated her on landing this huge role and also launched into an apologetic tirade about how he treated her in the past. He said he had matured, he had grown up, and he really believed that they could make movie magic together. He asked Jennifer to put the past behind them and trust him, and you can watch their screen test on YouTube, and it's just, you can't deny the powerful chemistry these two wonderful actors had together. So in the movie, there's a shot where Baby looks down at her parents in the cabin, sleeping after she snuck out to explore the lodge. And you can see that the cabin is still here, but the surrounding ones are all new, and so are the pools. There's a lot of new stuff. Also in the movie, Wayne Knight plays Stan, the typical Catskills comedian, host, MC with the wisecracks and the front lawn games. Wayne, he too was on Broadway. He's from New York. And he'll forever have a place in pop culture for playing Newman on Seinfeld. He was also in Jurassic Park, but his best work might be his role as one of the detectives interrogating Sharon Stone when she uncrosses her leg in Basic Instinct. But anyway, there's a lot more for guests to do here with all of these new additions, including a new walkway up to the main lodge. But the beach and the lake, they're gone. We'll go back down there in a bit and see what's left of it. All right, let's head up into the restaurant where we first see Johnny Castle, Mr. Patrick Swayze, who was born on August 18th, 1952 in Houston, Texas. Now, his mother, she was a dancer choreographer who ran her own dance studio. So Patrick, he was practically dancing right out of the womb when, of course, football wasn't taking up his time. He was very athletic until a knee injury derailed his football dreams, and he began focusing more on ballet and ice skating and dancing, which ultimately took him to New York City, where he landed the lead role of Danny Zuko in Grease on Broadway. And then he started landing roles in TV movies and on TV shows like the hit MASH. And he also did a few films like Skate Town, USA. And like Jennifer Grey, he also appeared in a Francis Ford Coppola film, The Outsiders, which I mentioned earlier. He was just one of the dreamy actors cast in the hit 1983 film. This, of course, it raised his profile as an actor, and he started working more and was even cast in the wildly successful TV movie North and South, opposite an all-star cast including Elizabeth Taylor, Jimmy Stewart, Peter O'Toole, and Olivia de Havilland, to name a few of the legends in it. But this didn't make Patrick a household name, but that was all about to change with the release of Dirty Dancing.
Kellerman's, we come together, singing all as one. We have shared another season's talent, play, and fun. Summer days will soon be over, soon the autumn starts. And tonight the memories whisper softly in our hearts. Join hands and hearts and voices, voices, hearts and hands. At Kellerman's the friendships last long as the mountain stands. Daytime, nighttime, any hour, weather, rain or shine. Games and lectures, jokes and music, happily combined. Join hands and hearts and voices, voices, hearts and hands. At Kellerman's the friendships last long as the mountain stands. Not a stress or strain is found here, for it must be said. Here at Kellerman's you gladden stomach, heart, and head.
How about this? Still looks like it did when they shot, well, several scenes here. The Housemans ate in here quite a lot. And in addition to baby seeing Johnny for the first time, we also meet two other characters. Robbie, the douchebag waiter who gets a pitcher full of cold water poured on him, was played by Max Cantor. He was born in 1959 into an affluent New York family. He grew up in the Dakota apartments where John Lennon was killed. He too was theatrically trained and appeared on Broadway before getting cast as Robbie. But after Dirty Dancing, he completely changed courses and became a journalist. Apparently, he was so involved in writing a story for the Village Voice about the New York City heroin addiction scene that he began experimenting with the drug himself. he injected himself with the poison and overdosed in 1991 at the age of 32. We also meet another douchebag, Neal Kellerman, played by Lonny Price. He too was born in 1959, and guess where? Yep, New York City. He went to Juilliard and then began landing roles on Broadway. And I have to mention that he was also in The Muppets Take Manhattan and an episode of The Golden Girls. But after Dirty Dancing, he went on to become a very successful director of stage and television. He's directed Glenn Close in Sunset Boulevard. He's directed Audra McDonald, Emma Thompson, actually too many people to name. But he's even won 2 Emmys. He directed Desperate Housewives and 2 Broke Girls. Really just an extremely talented man. Now, this actually isn't the Nobody Puts Baby in a Corner room. I mean, it looks like it, but that was actually in the Virginia location. But like I said, a lot was filmed in here, and they definitely want you to know it. There's even a sign over here telling you that the scones and the walls and the tables have not changed at all. I mean, pretty crazy to think about that. It's such a long time ago. Can't imagine how far in advance you have to book this table when you're staying here, but what a fun addition to your vacation. Okay, I'll show you another room. It's actually where Baby walks when I told you that she looks out at the family cabin. It looks more like a porch in the movie. It was pretty uncovered. It's also where the housemans eat during the day in several different scenes. But since the filming, they've made it more enclosed by adding bigger windows. And also another sign letting you know that this is the exact spot where Baby stands when she sees Johnny for the first time. And over here, this is the window where she gazes out at her sleeping parents. But again, keep repeating myself, but several of the family scenes took place out here. The Dirty Dancing shoot was plagued by just a perfect storm of problems. It was a very rough shoot. The set was burglarized, there was illness, food poisoning, a crew member fell off a ladder and broke bones, there were recasts, the weather itself was its own nightmare. It got so hot that extras fainted, including 90-year-old Paula Truman, a great character actress who played Mrs. Schumacher. She was treated for dehydration and returned to film her scenes, but then the weather shifted and got so freezing that people could barely work. This is what remains of the beachfront lake. Since the filming, the lake has emptied and refilled itself several times, but has remained dry for years now. They say it will refill itself at some point, but back then the water was so cold that they didn't even use close-ups of Baby and Johnny rehearsing the lift. Jennifer Grey's lips were so blue, and she and Patrick were just so miserable that they don't even zoom in on them. The area where they filmed the log scene, it's long gone, so is the log. But it was the one and only time that Jennifer used a stunt double. She and Patrick, of course, did all of their own dancing, and Patrick re-injured his knee during the shooting, which caused a lot of problems, but he pulled through and just delivered just a knockout performance. He took this movie very seriously. His wife Lisa was with him. They were married for 34 years until he passed away. Really his one and only love since he was 18 years old. And I listened to his autobiography recently, and he just seems like, he was such an extraordinary man. And there's still another piece of film history over here. The gazebo where Penny leads dance classes and where Baby confronts her dad. Really just a fantastic piece of acting between Jerry Orbach and Jennifer Grey. Sublime acting. But Penny, she was played by Cynthia Rhodes, who was born on November 21st, 1956 in Nashville. She started singing at Opryland, USA while she was still in high school in the 70s. And in 1982, she was cast in Toto's music video for their smash song Rosanna. Then in 1983, she appeared in 2 iconic dance movies, She had a small part in Flashdance, but then Sylvester Stallone cast her as the lead opposite John Travolta in Staying Alive, the sequel to Saturday Night Fever. And while working on the soundtrack, she met pop star Richard Marx, who she would begin dating 2 years later. She even appeared in his 1987 music video for Don't Mean Nothing. They married in 1989, had 3 sons, and stayed married for 25 years before eventually divorcing. Oh, I also have to say that Cynthia starred opposite Tom Selleck and Kirstie Alley in a bad 1984 movie that I loved as a kid called Runaway, written and directed by Michael Crichton. But I think it's safe to say her role as Penny in Dirty Dancing is probably her best. Also in the gazebo, we meet Vivian Pressman, played by Miranda Garrison. Now, I told you that Kelly Bishop got upgraded to the mom role. Well, this was her original role. When she vacated it to play the mom, Miranda, who was actually already hired as the assistant choreographer on set, stepped into the role of Vivian and made it quite memorable. Miranda, she's a fantastic choreographer. She did the movie Selena with J-Lo and worked on Evita with Madonna, and she even danced in Xanadu with Olivia Newton-John. And legendary dancer and choreographer Kenny Ortega worked on Xanadu too. He was Dirty Dancing's choreographer and was who Miranda was assisting before she got bumped to in front of the camera. Kenny Ortega, he also choreographed movies like Pretty in Pink and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the Danka Shane parade scene. He also did Madonna's Material Girl video, Olivia's Physical video, a bunch of Super Bowl shows, the movie Newsies, High School Musical and a bunch of its sequels, Michael Jackson's tours. He worked with Patrick again on Tu Wong Fu. Honestly, it's really too much to list his accomplishments. The man is just a genius, and he even has his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But we also have to talk about the film's director, Emile Ardolino. He was born in Queens in 1943, and he grew up working as an actor in off-Broadway productions. Then he moved behind the scenes, and in 1983, he won an Oscar for Best Documentary Feature about a former ballet star who founded his own dance institution. He also won some Emmys directing television as well, but it was his first film, Dirty Dancing, that put him on the map. And following this movie, he directed another absolute classic, Sister Act, in 1992. And the following year, he directed Bette Midler for television's Gypsy. But sadly, also that year, Emile died of AIDS in Bel Air, California. Closing out the Virginia location, I was going to mention what we haven't seen, all considered part of Kellerman's. Johnny's cabin, the plank where Baby carries a watermelon as she ascends up to the employee dance hall, the rehearsal space, Penny's cabin, and of course, the final scene filmed in the barn-like gymnasium/dining hall. The movie leads you to believe all those things were over on this side of the property, which Mountain Lake Lodge actually has. They just weren't the ones used in the movie. But the other locations, all those I just mentioned, they're all part of the North Carolina location. And all those locations are gone. So are the rows of cabins that you see in the film. These are not those cabins. These were built after the movie wrapped. All of those locations, they were filmed at Camp Chimney Rock in Lake Lure, North Carolina, which was a boys' camp founded in 1918, eventually became co-ed, and lasted until 1982 when it shut its doors for good. It sat completely abandoned until Dirty Dancing came along and used it. But shortly after the movie wrapped filming, the cabins were torn down, and then there was a fire basically destroying everything else. And eventually a gated community was built on this site, and I got lost in time going down a rabbit hole in the hotel room last night. Found a bunch of really great old photos of the camp. You can see and recognize locations from the movie. We're still going to go down and check it out because some things still exist. Before we head out, I want to show you one last memento. A tribute for Patrick Swayze, who passed away the same year that this was dedicated. I mean, he became the face of Dirty Dancing, a true superstar. He went on to make a handful of powerhouse films after Dirty Dancing and really leaves behind quite an impressive range of roles and even a hit song.
She's like the wind through my tree. She rides the night next to me. She leads me through moonlight, only to burn me with the sun. She's taking my heart, but she doesn't know what she's done. Feel her breath in my face, her body close to me. Can't look in her eyes, she's out of my league. Just a fool to believe I have anything she needs. She's like the wind. I look in the mirror and all I see is a young old man with only a dream.
All right, even though Chimney Rock is long gone, there are still a couple things in Lake Lure you're going to love. I'm going to show them to you even though it's pretty gross out. Actually, it's really quite beautiful. I hope the rain settles so I can find one of the most memorable moments from the entire movie, which, by the way, cost around $5 million to make and ended up grossing in its original run over $55 million, which was a ton of money back then. It's gone on to make so much more with home movies and re-releases, and of course the soundtrack, which was a smash, and included I've Had the Time of My Life, which won the Oscar for Best Original Song of 1987, and a pop duo Grammy for Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes.
Now I had the time of my life. No, I never felt like this before. Yes, I swear it's a truth, and I owe it all to you.
Gonna stay dry and in the car for this one, the Lake Lure Inn and Spa. It opened back in 1927, and it's actually where the cast and crew stayed while filming at Camp Chimney Rock nearby. And it hosts most of the visitors to the annual Dirty Dancing Festival thrown here in Lake Lure, which, look, I think it's great, and this town is beyond charming, but there's just really nothing left of Dirty Dancing here, and even though they have lift competitions in Lake Lure, I feel like it confuses people, and some places even try to get away with saying the actual lift scene was filmed in it, and it was not. That was back in Virginia, as you saw. And the actual Lake Lure is just right across the street here. And again, it sounds like a really fun event, but it's just not the lake where anything was filmed.
What you did, and just get wound toward the end, alright? Here we go.
You're my king. You're my total king.
We all worked incredibly hard, but we had a hell of a lot of fun, too. Especially during the scenes where the camp staff was dirty dancing after hours. Shooting those scenes really was like a party. Just rock and roll and everybody sweating on the dance floor. The actors and dancers in the movie were so game and so talented, they just tore it up. I drove the van between locations with Kenny and Jennifer and Cynthia and whoever else wanted to come along. We all spent hours together in that van singing songs and talking about the scenes. We were like a posse, a gang of young, energetic artists who'd been thrown together in this podunk little town of Lake Lure, North Carolina, in a beautiful old colonial-style hotel with nothing to do but create. It was one of the most exhausting shoots I can remember, but also one of the most fun.
This is kind of cute. The Inn and Spa offers 2 cabin rentals. You can either stay in Johnny's cabin or Baby's, neither of which were even here when Dirty Dancing filmed. Just 2 novelty additions for the tourists. But it's really a testament to the long-lasting legacy that this movie has had. And there's talks of a sequel. I know they did that Havana Nights prequel, but there's been some chatter about an actual sequel, and Jennifer Grey said she'd totally be on board if it honored Patrick, but I think they should. Hear me out. Baby comes back to Kellerman's, going by Frances now, and it's totally run by Penny because Penny sued Kellerman's. Turns out Robbie raped her. She got a huge settlement and ended up buying them and turned it into a camp for the arts for inner city troubled kids. Frances could come visit again, but instead of falling in love with someone, she falls in love with dance all over again. I mean, you could have a ton of Broadway folks in supporting roles, teachers, instructors. I mean, maybe Frances has a fling again, but mainly it's just about her love of dance. And I think this would work because in 2010, Jennifer Grey won her season of Dancing with the Stars, truly giving exceptional dances week after week until the finale. Oh, and her dad Joel, he could be in it. He came out of the closet in 2015. Seems like he's doing just great. I mean, 10 of us would think this movie's a great idea, and probably 4 of us would actually see it, but I think it'd be great. This is the Esmeralda Inn in Lake Lure. Nothing at all was filmed here. However, they salvaged something pretty remarkable. After the fire destroyed the walls of the gymnasium, the floor was actually saved, and the folks here decided to install it in the main lobby of the inn. The very nice lady working here told me that they get tons of people every year coming in to see this floor. And you can see it pretty well in the movie. It's been refinished and revarnished, of course, but this is the floor where Baby and Johnny do their infamous lift and where most of the cast dances at the end. And the lift, it was actually a very hard scene for Jennifer and Patrick. She put off rehearsing it for quite a while. She really needed to build that trust between her and Patrick before attempting it. And I just love that there aren't any dance doubles in this movie. What you see Baby and Johnny doing, it's all Patrick. It's all Jennifer. All the moves are theirs. Just 2 extremely gifted and talented performers. Well, it took forever, and I'm absolutely drenched, but I found our very last location, the steps where Baby carries her watermelon and where she practices her dance moves set to the song Wipeout. The cabins are no longer at the top, but the stairs still remain, and now there's a giant house where the gymnasium once stood, and the plank or boardwalk or deck, whatever you want to call it, that's gone too. Really, everything is gone. This is where Camp Chimney Rock once stood, and it's now all residential houses. And just be glad it's raining, or I'd probably bring out the tripod and do a side-by-side comparison of me and Baby practicing our dance moves.
The Dirty Dancing shoot was famously beset with problems, extremely chaotic. You could almost say cursed. Everyone's mettle was tested on this film. Nobody was having an easy time of it. Most of the cast and crew struggled with as much as I did, if not more. We were all in it together. Some people dropped out, some got hurt, some got blind drunk. But through it all, pretty much everyone showed extraordinary fortitude, heart, and determination. We prevailed. And more than likely, we were buoyed by some power greater than ourselves. I wish Patrick were alive. I wish we could get together. I wish we could reminisce about how, even though neither of us were kids, we were still very young and dumb. In the chaos of it all, I couldn't see what we had in each other. I wish I could tell him I'm sorry for the times I was judgmental or ball-busting, for not treating him with more empathy and compassion, for not trusting that a man would actually show up for me. I wish I could tell him what I know now. that I was so scared and in over my head. I wish I could tell him how lucky I feel to have had him as my baby's one and only Johnny.